Hi, my name is Gil Robertson, president of the African American Film Critics Association. Today, we are thrilled to be talking to the lead brothers in the hit Apple TV Plus series Severance, Tramell Tillman and Zach Cherry. We're going to kick things off by introducing you to the African members on the call today, starting with Carolyn Hines in Toronto, Canada, Karan Manoir Kelly in Charlottesville, Virginia, Al McGee in South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Nancy Green in Los Angeles, Anthony there, the movie guy in New York, New York, Samuel Leggett in Washington, D.C., Derek Dunn in Washington, D.C., and Michael Sorrell also in Washington, D.C., and one of our newer members, Jonathan Medicor, also in the Maryland area. I'm going to let you guys do what you do so well, and I will see you on the other side.
Mr. Scout. I know you're still weighing whether to return to Lumen. But the Mark I've come to know is happy.
Hello, is anyone there? Is the board on? It's Mark S. from Macro...
What you all did was one of the most painful moments in the history of this company.
What the hell?
But the four of you have become known as the face of severance reform.
Okay, so we're not in trouble?
I don't think so. Milchick said we're famous.
All of us equally, or one of us is like the star?
Now if you feel that you can't go on.
So what the hell did you guys see up there?
It's not our world up there.
And your life is filled with much confusion.
My Audi's wife died a few years ago. Except the woman is Miss Casey.
So what are you gonna do?
I gotta get her out of here.
Mark, your Annie said she's alive.
This is obscene.
I just want to be sure.
And your world around is coming down.
Why did you do this? What is this all about?
Do you know something about Gemma?
Mark, there'll be no honeymoon ending for you.
Your work will be remembered as one of the greatest moments of this planet.
You don't value them. You fear them. We fear no one.
I'm tightening the leash.
If we let this happen to Miss Casey, who's gonna step up when it happens to us?
Now. Goodbye, Marcus.
Wait!
My name is Miss Huang. It's my first day here as deputy manager. Mark W.
Why are you a child?
Because of when I was born.
Derek Dunn, Reviews and Dunn. I had a question for both of you. Based on your character and how you all feel, do you think they'd be more into Kendrick Lamar or more into Drake?
I mean, I think Dylan is a little bit of a hater, so he would probably be more on Team Kendrick.
I think this season, Milchick is definitely in his feelings, so he's more of a Drake.
Thank you both.
So good afternoon, gentlemen. Carolyn for Carolyn Talks Podcast YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about Severance. I want to talk a bit about here and attitude. So I noticed that for Mr. Milchick, Tramell, your hair in season 2 is a bit different than it was in season 1. In season 1, your afro was more compact, more round. And in season 2, he's getting a little bit of an angle. And it might seem trivial, but I kind of actually attribute that to his attitude changing. He's kind of like a square peg trying to fit into a round hole in season 2, whereas in season 1, he was actually fitting into the hole. You know, he was fully into the mindset of being Mr. Milchick, of being a facilitator. But in season 2, he has power, but he doesn't know how to use it. And he's trying to figure out how he works in this new dynamic. And for Zach, Dylan, as you said earlier, you just said he's a bit of a hater, but he's a kind of a sweet hater. In season one, he was more funny. He was much more easygoing. He was more easygoing with the flow, But in season two, he has an edge to him. There is a bit more of a undercurrent of he's fed up. He wants to get on. He doesn't know how to. And so I find both all of the characters are going through all of these changes, but I find both Mr. Milchick and Zach and Dylan, kind of almost like on opposite ends of the same spectrum, where they're like trying to fit into this dynamic, into this new space, and into this new headset, this new headspace, and they're battling themselves. And so I want both of you to talk about the hair and the attitude of your characters for season two. Tramell, will go with you, and then Zach.
Sure. I'm so glad that you brought up the topic of hair and hair care. This isn't something that I get to explore too much with the media to talk about his journey. And Milchick was on a journey when it comes to hair. His hair is basically another character, a part of who he is. And I have to give so much credit to Jennifer Lord, who does so much work in natural hair care in Hollywood to bring life in storytelling. We have to look at his positioning. In season one, he was basically a protege of Cobell. So his hair care was a bit different, a little bit more frazzled. But now in this position that he's in, because he's the boss, he's running the floor, there is a different perception that he has to uphold, right? He's more pristine, he's more crisp, he's sharper, and he has to lead with that. And I believe that that kind of specific fro, that angle, gives him more of a presence, and it does make him more intimidating in a way.
I really liked what you said about Dylan and Milchick being on kind of two different ends of the same spectrum, because I think something especially we kind of explore this season is how all the different characters at Lumen are sort of like trapped within the system that Lumen has created. And so even though Milchick is kind of Dylan's manager, he also has his own set of pressures and restrictions that he's going through, and Dylan this season gets this additional sort of carrot of his family, and it does really change his attitude in how he interacts with the people around him, and it makes him a little more alienated from them because he's so like worried about losing this new opportunity that he's been given.
Yeah, Dylan is just like he like a little chihuahua. Like he's snapping back, and I mean, and in a complimentary way, like he's snapping back at people very quickly, and like he's not about being affable anymore. And I love that change in him. And for the hair trimmer, you're just rocking the furrow, and I'm trying to figure out how big it's going to eventually get. If it's going to be a triangle or if it's going to be a square in season 3. We'll see. Thank you both so much.
We just got renewed, so we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah, we'll see if it's a square or an octagon, maybe.
Making notes.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Anthony White with the Movie Blog. I'm appreciative of you arriving promptly and on time, ready for this meeting. I wanted to touch on a couple of different things. In Severance, both of your characters, and you guys touched on this, where Milchick and Dylan kind of embody two different opposite sides. I noticed the tension between being an enforcer and an unyielding system between these two characters, one's yearning for human connection. So my question is, whether it's through handing out brief moments of joy with waffles or struggling with personal loss of family, what have you both learned from Mr. Milchick and from Dylan that you both have carry with you to this day?
Well, that's a great question. I learned that there's so much more to life than just work. I learned the importance of relationships even more so, and the value of having relationships. What we see in season 2, we don't visit Milchick's personal life. We see that, yes, this man rides a motorcycle, he has a leather jacket, he's got some swag, but we don't know what his home life is like. And I imagine, based on what we see from season 1 and season 2, that this is a man that does not have a lot of support or friends, if you will, within Lumen. We see the limited interactions that he has. And so stepping into this world that is very isolated And even being a part of a culture, an entertainment culture that is very competitive and is always about the next step in achieving and what are you willing to do to get to that next level, it really does press upon me um, navigating this space of what really is important and how I want to be when it comes to relationships and what relationships are really important and which ones are okay to let go of.
I think for me, it definitely has made me think a lot about uh, how much I'm willing to how I value myself in relationship to my work, in the sense that, I think something that the characters, especially the innies, are really trying to establish is that they don't just exist just to do this work, right? And I think even in our world, you can sometimes feel like that. It can feel very just like, you're here to do the job and we don't really care about what else is going on. So it has made me much more willing to kind of speak up for myself. And sometimes it's in small ways where it's like, no, I just need to go to the bathroom right now. I need 5 minutes. What, just little things like that. But also in bigger ways, in terms of projects that I am just sort of, maybe I'm not interested in doing that because it's not really worth my time, or it's not worth what I'm willing to put into it. So it has definitely made me a lot more thoughtful about how much I'm willing to give myself over to my work.
Thank you so much. Really, really insightful. And congratulations on season 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nancy Green here. And first of all, I love this show. It's amazing. And first, I have to shout out to the Nightmare on Elm Street reference in episode 8, when Cobell goes to the town and he asks her if she wants to get high. That's a huge thing in Nightmare on Elm Street 3, which of course we also started. And secondly, devour speculum. When Milchek says that, I was like, what? He told him to eat what? That was great. That was so great. And and actually in that episode, episode 9, there's a lot with Zach, Tramell, your characters basically standing up for themselves, kind of going against the system, going against what other people want, to say what it is that they want. And that's a big thing in Severance. So I wanted to know if you could talk a bit more about that. How do you feel about that, especially like in your careers, in your lives, circumstances where you kind of had to do that, and how it feels afterwards? I think with Milchek, sometimes there's a little bit of regret because you don't know what's going to happen. So, if you could talk about that a bit more.
I loved what Zach said earlier about, projects that we attach ourselves to and things that are not for us, because it reminds me of the power that we have to say no. And I know coming up in the industry, I didn't think I could say no. Or at least I was coached to be grateful for the crumbs that fall from the king's table, And, but, growing up with a family of people who were trailblazers in the sense of like civil rights and, community involvement, I really understood how important it was to have a voice and be able to use your voice. So knowing that I could say no and I could walk away from something was really empowering. And even to this day, it's not a easy decision. There are projects or things that I just don't vibe with, but you need a check. And so are you willing to be able to step into this project or commit to this happening, knowing that it's not for you, but you actually just need the money? And so there's that dilemma. I will say that it's always been important for me to instill or encourage other people to know that they do have agency, that you can walk away, that you can step up for yourself and fight for what it is that you need or to be heard in any avenue. And it comes at a risk. And, with episode 9, to bring it back to the devour feculence, we don't know what is the cost for Milchick necessarily. We don't know what the result will be after he just told his boss off. But there's a lot on his plate, and there's going to be a lot that he has to face. And in season 3, we'll see what comes of it. But there's always a consequence with it. But I'm glad that there is an avenue that Milchick is able to step up for himself and be heard and tell Drummond to back off.
Yeah, I love what you said about this sort of expectation that you feel grateful at work. And I think especially in our line of work, that's something that as you're starting out, you really feel of like you're getting this opportunity, even if it's something that you maybe don't really vibe with, it's like you're getting the opportunity. And I think on our show for the innies, that's heightened to an existential level of like, if you walk away from this job, you literally do not exist. And so I think in episode 9, that's something that Dylan is kind of grappling with of he's kind of like, okay, well, maybe it's worth it for me to just straight up not exist rather than to continue living this version of a life that I'm kind of being forced into. And I think that ability to say no that Tramell was talking about is also something that I think, learned a lot about on this show, partially in with working with some of the more veteran actors on our show, kind of talking to them about situations and lessons that they've learned. That ability to sort of be like, no, I'm actually, I'm not interested in that part. Or even on a project you're already working on, that ability to say like, I'm not going to do this version of it, or I'm not going to do this part of it, has been really impactful for me.
Hello, guys. How's everybody doing? My name is Evan Griffin. I'm with Movie Guru and Movie Guru Media. It's a pleasure and honor to talk to you guys today. And I just want to say first, Zach, man, you've been on fire this year. You've popped up on most of my favorite shows this year. And it's really a pleasure and honor seeing you on the screen. And of course, on Severance, one of my favorite shows. So congratulations to you, man. Just killing it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I also want to say this show has a very special place in my heart. I'm originally from New Jersey, where I believe the show was shot at, and I had a family member that worked at that same building.
It's a weird building.
I always thought so, so it kind of extends. I'm in the extended Severance family, if you will.
Absolutely.
And so my questions are for Tramell. Milchick's unsevered, right? And I want to talk about how that plays a role in his relationship with the rest of the unsevered team, because, I think we see him do things and then we have to remember that, and is he doing this on his own accord, or is he doing this for the company? And then also, where do you think he wants to go in the company? Because we see him do things as far as with his boss, or, sort of seeming like he wants to go forward, but then seeming like he doesn't, right? So that's my question for you. And then for Zach, in season 2, you have an interesting dynamic with your wife, right? And so want to know from your point of view, how does that, what's that like? And also maybe give some insight if Dylan's wife actually works for Lemon.
I get the result of being an unsevered employee, right? You walk away with your memories, Irvin said that in season 1. And so everything that is experienced, he feels it and recalls it. And I think that may be the byproduct, or that's what's leading him to have the hesitation, because he's keeping all of this information. I see Milchick as a man of many, many secrets. He is one of the few people on the severed floor, or a part of the severed floor, that knows any and everything about the innies and their outies. When he works with the outies, he's like a customer service representative. And then when he's with the innies, he's more like a teacher or a disciplinarian in that sense. And so there's a line that he is towing constantly to ensure that these lives are separate and that he maintains control. And what we see in season 2, as he's learning more about this company, specifically with the Kier paintings, I think it casts a bit of doubt. He's starting to understand that this company may not be everything that he thought it was. And while he does not have the space or the luxury to process all of this information, because everything is happening at rapid speed, day by day by day, we're starting to see the cracks in the Milchick facade a bit.
And as far as Dylan and his wife, I think something that we're kind of exploring this season is, you know, different versions of yourself. And I think the innie and the outie really are the same person, but I've always kind of thought of the innie as a version of the outie who doesn't have a lot of the additional baggage that comes with living a real life out in the world. And, you know, any number of things that can kind of like weigh you down. From what we learned about my outie this year, we see that he's kind of maybe struggled to find his thing that he really clicks with. But there's a million things that kind of just like, as you live a life, grind you down a little bit. And so I think his relationship with his wife this season, while it is painful, it's also an opportunity for him for a wake-up call to see another version of himself and to see like, oh, this is maybe how I used to be, or this is how I could still be if I kind of take an opportunity to correct course. So that was a very exciting story for me to tell this year.
Hello, this is Karan Lenoir Kelly with Karanism.com and Love Music Pleasure. And this is one of my favorite questions to ask when we're talking about Black people in the future, because it doesn't often get discussed. But would you be your character's friend?
Milchick kind of terrifies me. So no, I would not be his friend. I would definitely keep him close. Like, he's one of those dudes you got to keep your eye on, you know. So, but I would not call him my friend.
I think I would probably be friends with my innie, and I would be friendly with my outie.
I like that. So we know who's not coming to the barbecue. Thank you.
Nope.
So this is Jonathan. Sorry, this is Jonathan from Casual Movie Lover. My first question is for Tramell. You could have been a surgeon, an orthopedic surgeon, I believe, if you wanted to, but eventually you decided to go into acting. So my question is, when did you decide to make that switch? And what advice would you give someone that wants to make a significant career switch? And my second question is for Zach. If you could choose one part of your life to experience as an innie, what would it be and why?
I settled into orthopedic surgery. And I say that because as a kid, I always wanted to be an actor. And I was told I would never make it as an actor. And in order to make something of myself, I needed to go into science, technology, engineering, or math. And so I tried it. I watched my fellow colleagues, my fellow classmates while I was at Xavier University in New Orleans have so much life and zeal around nomenclature and balancing equations and studying cell walls that I was envious of that. I wanted to get back to the thing that gave me that light. And I jumped from career to career. And I remember sitting down with Dr. Mark G. Henderson, who was the head of acting at Jackson State University. And he asked me this question. He said, what is the one thing that you think about before you go to bed? And what is the one thing you think about when you get up in the morning? And what is the one thing that you would do no matter what, no matter the cost? And I said, performing. And he said, that's what you need to do. And so I followed it. I took a chance. And no, the road has not been easy, but I've learned so much about myself. I've developed wonderful relationships. I'm on a hit television show and talking with all you lovely people about the show. And I'm just grateful that I took a chance on myself. And so for those that are contemplating on making a switch, I would just advise, take a chance. You never know. If you fail, at least you tried.
As for what I would like to experience as an innie, I think, you know, I was like such a reader growing up. I always had a book with me. I loved reading, and I used to, and I still do, and I still kind of a little bit get that awe. But there was this version of reading when I was a kid that it would just fully kind of take me away, and I would just fully be immersed in these worlds and these stories. And that's something I'd love to experience again as an indie, just that like fresh opportunity to be like, wow, this is what storytelling and writing can do. So I think I'd go back and reread some of my favorites.
Evening, gentlemen. Najee Chambers from Big Gold Belt Media. Tramell and Zach, thank you for your time today. And as everyone has already said, congratulations for the renewal of season 3 of Severance. But what no one has said thus far is also being the most watched series on Apple TV Plus. Like, for real, and it's well deserved. First of all, I don't know what you two kind of do in your spare time, but if you are like myself and go down that deep rabbit hole of theories on Reddit and TikTok, I wonder, gentlemen, what has been one of your favorites or bizarre theories about the goats at Lumen?
I do love all the goat theories. I think I saw one that said they were going to turn Helly into a goat, which I did like that. That would be interesting.
I think there was a theory out there that all the goats are raised to turn into milkchicks, like multiple milkchicks out there. So I thought that was bizarre.
Thank you so much for the time, gentlemen.
Notice he didn't say it was wrong. He just said it was bizarre.
See, now you're starting something. Now.
Oh, that's a good one. How you doing? I'm Al McGee with YETicket.com. And again, congratulations for season 3, but congratulations for season 2. I'm so excited to talk to you guys. But here's my question. The creator and writer, Dan Erickson, what do you think he is saying about the human condition and work? Because I see that many people, when they work or have a career, that's how they identify themselves, even though they might have a family, but they identify themselves with their work. So what do you think, the creator is saying about the human condition, about work?
Well, I don't want to speak for Dan, but my takeaway from that is exactly what you're stepping on. Is it's connected to identity. I take it. I don't take it for naught that the first line of the show, episode 1, season 1, is "Who are you?" And especially when it comes to Milchick, what we're seeing is this thread of how he's navigating his identity and how he's navigating the identity of Lumen.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great questions of the show, and I think there might be different answers for all of the characters. Kind of that's what's been really fun to explore. And I think for Dylan, we see a little bit more of his outie this season. We don't see the full picture, but we kind of get the sense that because he hasn't been able to find his particular work identity, that's led to some issues for him in terms of confidence, in terms of how he sees himself. Whereas his innie knows what he does and he knows he's good at it, and that's lent a very particular flavor to how he carries himself. So whether I think that's interesting, because whether you want it to or not, the way in the world we exist, your work does in some ways define you. Like it's a huge part of the way people see you and the way you see yourself. So I think that is definitely something that we're exploring on the show.
Well, thank you very much for your answers. And that's how I feel too. Many people just identify with their work, not so much with their family, but who they are and things like that. Thank you very much. And thank you for taking time with us here at AAFCA. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Hello, Michael Sowell from Washington, D.C. Again, following the train. Congratulations with this show. Again, being a popular show on Apple TVs, like this is today in terms of television, and I feel like all of us as fans, we're eating good. But my question is for Zach. I've seen you in a lot of different shows, and again, I know this was said earlier. I do really love your performances in many different genres that you have tapped into, particularly not just in the small screen, but also on the big screen. So my question is, when are we going to see you again in the MCU?
Hey, you tell me. I don't know. They keep that even more secret than Lumen does. They keep a lock on everything. I have no idea. But I would love to be back.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a testament that every time you appear on screen, it just puts a smile on my face. So I just wanted to say we love your character and we'd love to see more of you. But again, congratulations with the show.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Hello, Tramell and hey, Zach. This is Samuel Lake with JVS Media Productions. This is an amazing show. Congratulations for a third season. The biggest thing I want to kind of ask you guys and pick you guys' brain about is morals and ethics. I think there's this gray area with this show on different levels. With you, Zach, with Dylan, right? Like he's having like a relationship with the Audi's wife, and morally, is that right? If it's the same person, it's within consent, it's a question of ethics and morals, right? But then with Milicek, the beginning of the season, he completely lies to everybody in the preservation of the company. But ethically, is that right? You know, and there's so many different underliers with that. But I think that that's at the core of this that you always have to keep pondering because these people have consented to do this, but that doesn't mean it's right. And that means that they're being used as well. And so I wanted you guys to tell your perspective on ethics and morals and how this has kind of impacted you on an emotional level since working on the show.
I think for me, for me, in terms of Milchek, it's tied to his purpose. Who is he serving? Who is this for? You know, being a part of Lumen, it has this cultish mentality. You know, it has its own history. It has a pedagogy, you know, philosophy that all people that follow it or all people that are employed at Lumen, they follow it religiously. So there's a blind faith that Milchek follows and he's under. And anything that he can do to be of service to Kier, to be of service to Lumen, he abides by it 100%. And so I think where he's lying or he's being duplicitous, it's less of a moral conundrum in that sense from his perspective because he's doing it for the greater good. And I think that potentially is what allows him to sleep at night, if he does sleep at night, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think in terms of what you were talking about with my character Dylan, there's this question of kind of, can you consent to your own exploitation? And I think that has real world, there are real world examples of that, like on a sort of low stakes level. I think in our world, you often will kind of be offered these opportunities of like, oh, you can do this and it's great for the exposure and you're not getting paid. And so there's this question of like, well, you know, I'm happy to do this because it is for exposure, but the people offering the opportunity are getting a financial benefit and you're not. So I think that's just like a semi low stakes version of that conundrum. And I think on our show, what we do is heighten it to these existential levels of, can you consent to your other half and your wife having, you know, it's breaking new ground and it is complicated and it is thorny, but I think it's like there are parallels to real world things, which is why it's, I think, so engaging.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it was like at a certain point, I was like, what if like Dylan was schizophrenic, right? And he had a mental illness. One part of him, his wife loves, the other part of him, he doesn't, but she doesn't say anything. Morally, is she in the right without, you know, bringing that to both attentions? And I think yeah, I love how they handle that. And thank you guys so much for talking. Congratulations on the third season.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ruben Peralta from Miami. I think I've been the #1 defender from the show since season 1 because many of my friends, they started to watch the show and they stopped after 3 episodes. And I had to convince them, just keep watching, keep watching, keep watching. Now in season 2, it's totally opposite. Like we know what happened and now we are connecting with the characters and we feel what it's about. As an actor and a mindset, how do you shift from a slow burn in season 1 to now have more action in season 2?
Well, first, thank you for being our #1 defender.
Yes, thank you. Let's go, Ruben.
I appreciate that. I mean, listen, I know that this show is different. You know, I know this show asks something that most television shows don't ask of their audiences. You know, you got to lean in, you got to pay attention. It's not a casual watch. You know, you can't do laundry and do your nails and eat popcorn. You know, you can't. You got to really lean in with this show. So that's a shift for people. So I think it takes some time. But what's really been fun, to answer the second part of your question, is, you know, really being able to step into this world where things are heightening to a whole nother degree. And what's really interesting is that the stakes were really high from day one when we started. It's just, it was told from more so the innies perspective. You were seeing how the innies were affected by this new recruit, Helly, you know. But when we started, you know, PD was missing. We could not find him. This new chip was in question. Helly, who is Helena, was being integrated, which is a huge thing because you have an Egan on the floor. And now you have Mark, who's now stepping into this new leadership position. So Milchick and Cobell have their work cut out for them. And they've been working behind the scenes. But so much of that season in the beginning was more so focused on what the Severed Floor is about. But now we're seeing with Milchick in his new position what it's like from a leadership standard or a leadership stance of what it is to be on the Severed Floor. So the stakes have definitely increased with now more information that's been introduced to the Severed Floor and to the innies.
And I'll add to that in terms of it was very exciting as an actor this season, partially just to get to like do new things that we haven't gotten to do together. Because in season one, you know, we made this show kind of in a vacuum and we made our little thing and then it went out in the world and it was fun watching people see it. But it was basically a lot, at least for me, it was all in the office. It was a lot of kind of small stuff. And then this season, they were like, oh yeah, you're going to be on the top of a cliff wearing, you know, a big heavy coat. Like just the opportunity to do that with all these same people was awesome and really exciting. And I can't wait to see what we do next season.
Well, I'm a huge fan now, and I just looking forward for season 3 and congratulations, guys. I love the show, and all the people that were doubtful about it, they just thank me now. but it's thanks to you.
Thank you.
Zach and Tramell, thank you. Thank you for your time today. Both of you are tremendous. We are loving what you're bringing to Severance, and we look forward to seeing much more of you in the third and other future seasons to come. On behalf of the world's largest group of Black film and TV critics, have a great weekend, and thank you for taking part in AAFCA Roundtables.
Thank you.
Thank you.